let's call the streets committee to order. Please call the roll.
Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman,
Present.
Alderman Moore, Alderman French, Alderman Carter,
Present.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Murphy,
Here.
Alderman Coter,
Here.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Present.
Chairman Bosley.
Present.
We have 6 present and we have a quorum.
We got a quorum. All right. Alderwoman Tyus is not here. Let's see, I got Board Bill 137.
And then Alderwoman Spencer was
Oh,
gonna
wait,
take,
no.
she's
So
gonna
I'm
take
gonna
270 and 271.
Right, because these
Deborah
two-
Roadies.
Oh, we
We
used
have-
to.
I know what, I'll go right after you.
What are you handling?
My bills.
So,
You don't have any.
Chairman,
Well, we're gonna take the people that attend the meeting.
that would be 270
270
270 and
and
271.
271.
and
So,
271.
do you want us to come down here?
You're an older lady, you can go where you want.
If you can.
And she will.
It's true, usually in boots. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, it's my understanding, Alderman Rhodey is unable to be here today, but these two bills are very simple, residential, establishing some residential parking districts, and we have some representatives here that have some presentations for us to better inform us what we plan to do with these two board bills. So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask these folks to come up and kind of explain what we're gonna do. Yep.
Brody knows you're gonna handle this.
Yes, he does, and he, yeah.
As long as he knows, so we don't mobilize no alderman.
Nope.
See, that's why I'm like, you don't get overridden.
So, if you don't mind, you'll have to introduce yourself.
Then we'll come back and bite you.
My name is Susan Anderson. I'm with Park Central Development. We're the administrator for special business districts and community improvement districts, primarily in the 17th Ward. So, I have I'm sorry I only have 3 packets made up, but if you would share those with one another. I have 2 areas that we want to have restricted parking districts. Number 1 is Kings Highway in Laclede. It's an amendment to an existing district. There are 10 apartment condo buildings in that area with 213 units, but there's only 136 street parking places. 3 of the buildings have very limited off-street parking available. Some of the units are up to 3 bedrooms, so most of them, even most married couples have 2 cars. There's not enough parking. So we're requesting an amendment to an existing district right there that would add to it and allow 4 to 20 North Kings Highway to be included.
So which one is, can you describe, so one of these
That's
bills
this
is
one.
pertaining to the
So
Buckingham
it's
Court.
271,
So 271 is,
the
Pers-
amendment
the amendment, and
And
that would
that's
be.
number
for-
1.
Okay,
on the map.
and this is just to establish some additional residential parking
Exactly.
area.
Yes.
Okay. So again, we're now looking at Board Bill 271, and this is just an amendment of the existing residential parking district here. And so with that, this is just amending it to make it a little bit bigger so that the residents of these condo buildings can park.
The proximity to the medical center, folks that are visiting there, either as a patient or a visitor of one of the patients, employees, staff, most folks want to sidestep the parking garage fees. So parking on the street is very attractive to them. And a $10 parking ticket every once in a while, so it's a major issue.
So they'll have a hang tag or
Yes.
something? They'll have an identifier?
Yes.
Okay. All of this is in the 17th Ward, right?
Yes, sir.
And the alderman did ask you to handle it?
That's correct.
Okay, well, I don't have a problem. Whatever he wants in his ward, alderman should have it. So, are there any questions of any of the aldermen at the table? If there are no questions on board bill, if we're talking about 270 first,
271.
271, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a
I'll
motion.
second.
That was
It's
well
been
done.
moved and seconded that board bill 271 comes out with a due pass recommendation. Call clerk, call the roll.
Alderman Ortman.
Aye.
Alderman Carter.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy. Alderman Coder.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Chairman Boswell.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes and 0 noes.
I may have one more.
You got one
She's
more?
got one
You
more.
So
got
then we're gonna look
270.
at 270, which would be number 2 on the map. And this is the establishment of a new
This is a new
residential.
residential parking district at Vanderbilt and Laclede. That building has sat underutilized and primarily vacant for probably 20 years. It's recently been purchased and fully renovated. I'll tell you that the apartments on the second floor facing Vanderbilt are rented, fully rented, at over $1,500 a month. So that's quite an improvement from a vacant building. And first floor is commercial along Vanderbilt. Along Laclede, it is a townhouse sort of unit, so that on the first floor, it's an artist live-work situation. So they have their studio on the first floor, their living spaces on the second floor. Parking in the rear of the building is primarily for the units that face Vanderbilt. The Laclede folks don't really have a place, and their entry is from Laclede. So we'd like restricted parking just in front of that building. I've worked almost a year in preparation for this. There was a Metro bus stop there. They've moved it. Immediately west of the building is the former St. Louis Police Department garage, and there was restricted parking there. They've changed that. The developer also paid $3,500 to the street department so that the entire side of that block, from New Market Hardware east to Vanderbilt, is all striped with 45-degree angle parking, and the developer paid for that himself.
Are there any other businesses in that area
Yes, they have off-street
in
parking.
close proximity to this building?
They have off-street parking. One business there.
Well, would this inhibit people who normally park in that area from being able to park there?
No, it is a judo studio, and he has off-street parking that takes care of all his customers. He has no issue with it whatsoever.
This in no way would inhibit anybody else coming in
No.
that would like to park to do business
No,
anywhere
this,
in that area.
this is just in front of that one building. That's it.
All 17th Ward, that's what that all promotes. Are there any questions on Board Bill 270? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to do
Second,
pass resolution.
previous row.
The request for the previous roll 270 is up.
Thank you all very much.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
Sir. Well, wait a minute. You wanna go in front of Karen's?
Yes, sir. Today I do.
That's a lady, man.
He said, that's a lady, man.
Let's talk that way.
Feels simpler,
Yep.
or simple. I didn't mean to say simpler.
Just like you.
Right. Just like me, simple, right?
This is Board
The
Bill
vagaries
what?
of the chair.
313.
313?
Yes, sir.
Sort of.
Okay, hold on.
313. You got it. You got a couple there.
It's at the, it's the last one. I have two.
313, I got 320.
313.
It's the last, it's the last one.
I don't have.
think, Mr. Chairman, you took
Sticky.
Carter's bills off the agenda. I remember you telling me that. Did you hear that, Chris? See that?
Definitely heard that.
See that? I think we decided we weren't gonna listen to your bill. See, the chair don't have them. See that?
They on the bottom of his,
No, he got rid of them.
hey, look, he threw his way.
All right, we got Board Bill 313.
Yes, sir. This is a fairly simple bill, and what happened here is that my new captain of the 6th district recommended me two streets that I close off due to heavy traffic problems and drug sales and a long list of other things. So that's how Bill 313 came about. We are closing North Point at Goodfellow. Right there, we have had a long list of issues from shootings to drug sales right there at that point, and we are trying to lead traffic into another direction so the police can better monitor. So,
You want
with
them to
that, I'll
shoot at
take any questions.
You want them to shoot at a different place.
Are there
Shoot
any-
somewhere, hey, shooting Jeffrey Ward.
Are
Is
there
it
any-
legal?
Don't put it in the
It's
first.
legal to Jeffrey.
Are there any occupied residents on North Point Boulevard?
Yes, sir, but, where this is, there's a business. It's a beauty supply, and, the owner is in favor of it as long as it's temporary.
You don't know temporary gonna be permanent.
Yep.
Was there public hearing relative to
Yes, sir.
this
We
concept?
had a meeting. We actually had two meetings, the third Saturday of last month and the third Saturday of the month before that. We had, meetings, discussing this, and, all residents and businesses are on board, the ones that are close by. And they want to see this happen fairly quickly because they know that, we have major issues, right there.
Well, it's in your ward.
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions on Board Bill 313 of anybody? If not,
So the temporary closure, Alderman Carter, would be, the end goal would be for a permanent closure?
No, we just, I think they just wanted to monitor how the traffic, would change, how the flow would change, and also if it would, stop the drive-through drug sales. They basically, the way, that the street is made up, so it's an alley that comes off the street, and people, it's like a meeting point, and so they meet, and they just transfer drugs right there, and it's like literally a long line of people where the guy who's selling it is just riding up and like serving a long line of people, and you can literally watch it. So the police, in efforts to keep it out of our community, that was one of the things that they asked me to move forward with. Along with cameras and other stuff. I mean, we have multiple other things there, like cameras should be coming up there soon. But the main thing was the easy access to traffic in and out of the North Point neighborhood.
did you have any public meetings with
Yes, sir.
community people?
Yes, sir. We had two. We had one the third Saturday of last month and the third Saturday of the month before, and everybody was on board.
Okay, as long as they're not finding out from it. You close that street where they normally do. And it's in the 27th ward.
Yes, sir.
And then they all of them should have what they want in their ward.
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions on Board Bill 313? None, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we pass resolution, that we pass recommendation.
And a second?
Second.
All right.
Previous role.
Request for
There you go.
approval on
Were you on
313
previous
is
role?
out.
Yes,
We do
I was
pass
on all of them.
recommendation.
I actually came in here right when we first.
Yeah.
Just wanted to-
The next one is
Bill 319.
319, which is similar. It's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Our 6th district captain asked that we close this one off. This street is, these streets are different because this one is like literally right next to the highway. So when we get there, it's basically a L-shaped street.
We haven't.
And so it's the same thing, same setup, different drug dealer though, who is just using it as a pass-through to meet folks to exchange drugs and other things.
Are there any residents that live on this block?
No, sir, this is right next to the highway,
And it's all in the 27th ward?
all in the 27th ward, just a little bit in the first. No, I'm joking.
That's all right. I'm coming with a bill to open up whatever he's
No.
closed.
Are there any questions on Board Bill 219? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that pass, that we pass recommendation.
Is there a
Second.
Second.
Previous row.
Thank you.
Previous row, Board Bill 319.
All on you.
All right.
What about 137 now?
Okay, that's me.
You know, we do have a couple simpler ones.
Okay, yeah.
For Alderwoman Behringer.
This is not easy?
It should be. We've been working on it. I tell you, if I look at it again, I'm gonna like scream.
Alderwoman Behringer has one that Alderwoman Murphy was gonna handle. That's 320.
Yes,
320?
Yeah.
yes. I have Board Bill 320 introduced by Alderwoman Donna Behringer, and it is basically an ordinance to repeal the temporary street closing and make it permanent. It was an oversight. It was never made permanent. And she said the decorative planners have been in place since 2005 with 97% of over 400 households. They approved the closing at 3 public meetings. And it was, thought it was permanent, but discovered it wasn't. And so this is to remedy that problem and just make the street closing permanent.
Are there any questions on Board Bill 320? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Second, previous row.
Request for pre-bill 320 is out.
Alderwoman Behringer thanks you, I'm sure.
All right.
Alderwoman Tyus, would you want to present 284 first? Or?
It can be first.
You want me to cover it for you? I got it.
You got it for me? Okay. Tell them about closing what?
There is a 284,
That's
which
problems
is
if they don't want, no, I don't know.
You want to do 284, all right.
Okay. 284 is a street closing in the 50, I have triple blocks, 50, 51, 52 are triple blocks. Wabata is the only triple block that is 2 ways. They get traffic going both ways at 100 miles an hour. In fact, we had a young man get killed because they come down and come off the Kings Highway, and they were on these motorized scooters, and a police officer was going to a call, and we had tried to get them to stop, and so they ended up with a young man who's deceased now. So they are wanting to close off their street, not right at the curb line, but about 50 feet from the curb line. There's an alley that goes behind Union, because the 50, 51, and 5200 blocks are between Kings Highway and Union. There's an alley that goes behind Union. They want to close it off there to stop some of the traffic, and also to stop the kids from cutting through from the 22nd Ward, is where this young man lived, and coming down and making it a thoroughfare and using it to race these scooters, and also these, I guess they got these new motorcycles, off-road things that are like 3 wheels. So they've been, right, so they got almost every registered voter and every resident on the, I think it's like 70 signatures here, that's on the street, and they did it in like a weekend. So they were very concerned about what had happened there, and they've been putting up with this for a long time. So they've asked if we would try a 6 months probationary period of the street closed off, and if they like it, they're going to send a petition to permanently close it.
That's 53 and 5400 blocks.
No, 50, 51, 52. They're all blocks. There's nothing that cuts through them. They're triple blocks. And everything I have between Union and Wabata, I'm sorry, between Union and Kings Highway are triple blocks. So between Kings Highway and Euclid are my single blocks, and between Marcus and Euclid are my double blocks. So my ward was very square: double block, single block, triple blocks.
That's right. Now, there's the people in those blocks are aware that, okay, that's
Multi-pages. Very well. We actually had several meetings, told them how to do it. We kind of have I have set up a thing from years ago that we have a procedure you have to go through before I will even do anything like that. We go through the procedure, everybody knows it.
Are there any questions on Board Bill 284? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second, previous roll.
Request for Bill 284 is out. Pass recommendation. Did we do 137 last year?
No, this is the one that we're coming up with.
And I wonder if we should, whether you want to move to consider this committee substitute first?
Correct. Mr. President, members of the committee, I'd move to put Board Bill 137 committee substitute before you.
Second?
Which version at this point? I've got 2 committee subs here. No, this one's not a committee sub, it's the original.
Correct. You have to have the original.
Yeah,
And I actually-
137 is here because.
And then the
of
committee,
the
the committee,
process.
got it, okay.
But to put 137 committee substitute, it requires a vote.
Sure.
Right.
And is there a motion?
She already did, 20.
She, the Alderwoman, Pius moved that we put it, we put the committee substitute before us, and I seconded that motion.
Didn't hear that.
It was fast. I didn't hear it either.
Previous
I'm writing
roll.
it down right now.
You gentlemen have to listen.
Previous roll.
You use your husband's
No, he
skills.
didn't hear it either.
But I did hear a motion, a request for previous roll.
Oh, you only hear, oh, he only hears deep voices. Okay,
No,
so
yeah.
Alderwoman. Okay, and actually, so, 137, I have something here for the Alderman from the 7th, because we have also with this, would you pass that to him? We're gonna do a couple of little corrections. 137 has been a long time coming. When I started out with this, I didn't know what I was getting into. I might have just did what everybody else did, which was to just do my little portion and going about my business. But it's a vending bill and peddler's bill, and in trying to clean it up, I found out that there were 7 ordinances, previous ordinance going back from the 1920s, and which had something to do with this. Each time we amended a bill, we just did a section of the bill, and we made it part of our code. And so it's really not the best way to do amendments. We really should clean it up each time. So I worked with the clerk attorney of the board, and we kept sending back over and over and over, because he had something that he could do called a red line to make sure I didn't leave out anything that was in the previous things, and to try to bring this into one board bill, an ordinance, so that when people tried to use this, it would be up under one ordinance. So what I did is that I start out, you'll see all these ordinances starting out from April 21st, 1926. And none of them are highlighted through July 29th, 1999, because they were all repealed by a previous ordinance from when Alderwoman Young, previous Alderwoman from the 7th Ward, did that. So I just put those in there, but I didn't want to I wanted to make sure that there was no ordinance that we amended without making sure we put everything that we wanted back in there. So then we had to go through and kill every other ordinance that was, had anything to do with this, and then start afresh, well, not afresh, but make sure everything was placed in this ordinance. And that's how you have to do it to clean it up. And each time I tried to clean it up, I would send it to the clerk. He would do a red line to see if there was something we were missing, then he would send it back. The last time he sent it back, there were only 2 little things that were missing. And that is on, both of them are on page, here, and I have amendment. Okay. I think the last, here was my, page 18. Then we'll go through everything, but I just want to tell you what, is it? Yes. Okay, so, one of the things that we, that was still not cleaned up correctly was, if you look at, page 18, line 545, the director shall issue not more than 10 vehicle vendor permits. I actually have an amendment here to take out "and not more than 3," the words "and not more than 3," and put the word "or" in there. And I have the written amendment, I'm just kind of talking about. And that will make it exactly like what it was, and I gave it to the Alderman from the 7th because it affects his award. That will make it exactly like what it was before, because we weren't trying to change anybody else's wards that didn't want anything changed. The other amendment is page 18 of 18, line 565. The very last thing, last line, it says "to the northern," and then we wanted to add the word "end."
565.
Line 565, page 18. To the northern, oh, it's in here now, okay. It is. He was,
It says to the northern at West Coast.
yeah, but it should be an "end," okay.
We need to add "and."
Yeah, it
Okay.
doesn't say
And.
end.
Right. Okay. So
Although-
those are gonna be the 2 amendments that I'm gonna submit. And everything else that we went through, we were able to do red lines, and I actually have one in a color, and I can make another one for anybody who wants to see the color. I think you provided them with a red line copy also. Is that right, Mr. Clerk?
Yeah, in paper, there's a
black and white red
Right,
line.
it's a black and white red line.
But I printed out color,
New things are
Right.
double underlined,
right, exactly,
and,
Right.
and there's cross out for the,
okay. So I just wanted to kind of go through each page so we can kind of go through it. Starting at page 1, we had to repeal all these ordinances that are highlighted and underlined, because these are all ordinances. In order to put it all in one thing, we have to repeal the previous ones.
So I'm sorry, we're looking at the ordinance right now?
We're looking at Board Bill 137, Committee Substitute. I'm starting from page 1 and going through each change.
And this is
and then this shows
Line
the
16 to
changes
22.
to the
to
existing
the
code.
existing code.
Right, so it doesn't show
So-
section 1 of the board bill, because that's not really, wouldn't be part of the code.
So then anything underlined is new,
Correct.
understood, okay.
And if you
I
look
highlighted-
really close, it's
right.
double, yeah.
Double
And then
underlined.
in her committee sub, she has, the alderwoman from the first has underlined and italicized and bolded
Right.
things that she was adding.
That is different from this red line
No.
version? Everything in this red line version is as it pertains to what we see in the committee substitute
Yeah,
before
correct.
us.
Well-
It changes the, and
No,
you
it's-
can show any change to the code.
There's not everything in here, because this is some other things that are changed that was not part of this. Okay? Right.
Well, you mean the, like section 1?
Yeah, right, like some things that, because this is only the part, the vendor's part of it. This isn't the whole code right here.
Right.
Right, so like when, there's some things I added that wouldn't be in here. Did you,
So I think it
Well,
would,
You mean
No,
about
right, right,
the
but
police
they're
conference?
represented in here as being added.
okay, all right.
If
It
that
wasn't
makes
originally
sense.
in there, okay.
Right, right. This
Okay.
shows,
so everything in Board Bill 137, committee substitute, that
Mhm.
changes
Mhm.
anything in our city code
correct,
is outlined in this document.
correct.
And there's nothing added here that is missing from this document.
Well, it is, when you start looking at the ordinances that I'm going to repeal, that's why I was going through, starting with page 1.
So right, so in the code is meant to be a representation of the law as it
Right,
is today.
exactly.
So the code would not, in section 1 of this bill, where there's repealing old ordinances, that doesn't get put into the code, because the code is just meant to be a clean version of what
Sure,
it
sure,
is.
sure,
So-
sure.
so
It's a
that's not-
subset of the ordinance, really.
No, understood. But
Okay.
Yeah.
anything,
But,
the result, any changes to the code
mhm,
as it, that is proposed by this committee substitute is outlined in here. There's
Correct.
nothing, yeah, just wanna make sure
Correct.
that we have okay.
although it sounds like we'll have a couple of amendments,
Well, just those two that you,
those two that you just went over.
the-
she'll
because we
offer
kept
up.
going back and forth with the red line until we were cleaning up everything. And you need to do that when you're doing something like this, okay? Okay, so anyway, just starting from page 1, everything that's highlighted, the different ordinances that we needed to to repeal in order to have one ordinance together are the ones that's highlighted, okay? The previous ones had already been repealed in another ordinance. So ordinance 65061 through 69639 are all the ordinances that have been done since 2000 to 2013. You have, you need a highlighter?
Here it is, Doc.
I do, and I didn't
Would you like
bring
a
one. It's
highlighter?
okay.
I've got one right here.
You have one?
Anybody else need any
That's
other
okay.
writing instruments?
I'll take a marker.
Too many glitter sticks?
And bring them some stars too. Okay, so,
He asked.
I love glitter sticks.
So, Alderwoman, one of the ordinances you're repealing, 68603,
mhm.
set that ordinance, in addition to being part of the downtown vending district, sets up the vending district funds that the money goes into. So without that ordinance, there's no fund anymore. So that causes problems, again, for one of my vending districts.
The funding is in there?
Yes,
Okay.
68603, and this leads me to my biggest problem with this bill is all these various ordinances that you're repealing, including 68603.
Well, I actually, wait a minute first, okay, so let me just address that. So what I was told, because again, and so we don't have to do this if that's doing that, because that's not what I'm trying to do, or we can take it out. I actually got each ordinance that is supposed to be repealed, and there are copies for people, right there, okay? Right there, so,
And, you know, this is now our fourth week here dealing with this.
and I
I've
will keep
tried-
dealing with it,
And
okay?
I've tried on a number of occasions to look at these various ordinances you're repealing, and the one that continues to jump out at me is 68603, which then on page 15 of your bill, line 446, is referenced. So now without that ordinance, we're now referencing an ordinance that no longer exists.
Excuse
on
me?
page 446.
Okay, so, again,
That's just one of the procedural issues I have with this.
and good, that's good. But
Yeah.
I told you, this is very hard because usually this is not what happened. We do
Right.
piecemeal. I have no problem with this. I'm still gonna keep working on this until this is something that's right. So when I thought that he had given to me everything that was in the code to change. If you're telling me that this is something, then I would appreciate it if you would have said, hey, this is in here, because I told you from the beginning, I'm not trying to change anything about your downtown. I was trying to.
And that's just because at some
Excuse
point
me,
I
you
start to
are, you're
wonder-
talking over me. I would like to
Yeah.
finish, okay?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't appreciate you talking over me.
I
I'll
don't
let you.
appreciate you
well,
constantly trying to change the downtown vending
I'm
district
not
in these
trying to,
bills.
and I told you that, and you're new, so you think that, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I was trying to incorporate it into one thing. It is very hard when you call the police about something, and they gotta look at 7 or 8 things, and they end up not listening to what you're talking about because they don't understand it. And frankly, Alderman from the 7th, it's hard for most of the people been here for a long time to understand it because it's so piecemeal, and it shouldn't be piecemeal. So if I was trying to change your ordinance, I would tell you that. So you're telling me that it's a problem. I told you that I don't have a problem, and continue, and I'll bring it back again, and I'll bring it back the other time. And I told you that the first time, so what you're getting upset about, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, so going on back, so you say that ordinance 68603 has your funding in there.
Correct.
That is not what if I was trying to do that, I wouldn't have sent it back to the clerk 20 times to do redlining to try to see what are we missing here. That would have been something that should have popped out, okay?
Right.
So again, I'm not trying to change yours, okay? So, and it still doesn't have to get done until it's done right. I don't do that. So let's get that straight. Okay, so anyway, so there's a problem there, 68603. I don't have a problem with that, okay? Are there the other ordinances are 68757, 68990, 69639, and all of these were supposed to be then put into one board bill so we could have one board bill. So when he tells me that, what I will go back to do is I will go back to just amend the ordinance as it goes to vending, and put it in, and then leave anything else alone. You don't have to repeal a whole ordinance. You can just repeal parts of an ordinance and put that into one ordinance. So the only thing I was trying to do was put your downtown vending in here so that it was just the way that it was before. And if you had any concerns, that's why we were sending it to you, and you could have just told us that.
Well, I'm doing it here in committee.
But you could have told us when we kept sending it to you.
Another one, Alderwoman, and I don't actually know if this one's been repealed, and it just
None of them have been repealed yet. They are
Right.
proposals. This is in the committee
Line
substitute.
145, and I actually don't know if this is in the big list. But, so there's various places throughout the ordinance, the proposed ordinance, that then reference other ordinances,
Such
that
as?
are being repealed. I don't know if this one is, I'm trying to
Well, so
double
why
check.
don't you let me finish what I'm doing, and then when you have your questions, when it's your term, you bring them up to me.
Okay.
I'm not gonna holistically just say, because you don't like it, I will address them.
Great,
Thank you.
Alderwoman.
I appreciate it. So anyway, so it went to amending the ordinances, and then it also goes to, if you look at line 24, prohibiting vending on any LRA-owned property. That was something that, a few weeks back, Alderwoman from the 2nd had brought up, and also had been one of the things, the concerns that I had, because a lot of times, and if you just passed Valentine's Day, a lot of people just set up any place. Years ago, we had a ordinance that prohibited people from putting signs on LRA properties, and that worked pretty good because it's pretty easy to give the police a copy of the ordinance if they don't know it, and they can't put political signs or other signs on LRA property. So that was page 1. Some more ordinances that needed to be repealed are all in here, on page 2 of 18. And again, I made copies for everybody because we want to make sure that we're not trying to repeal anything that has something else in it that needs to stay in there. But these were all the ordinance about vending. When you go down to page 2 of 18, on line 61, we did a definition of LRA properties. It's just a property that's owned in fee simple by the land.
Well, they're in the bill, and then here's copies.
Yeah, here's the list of all.
Yeah, the whole space, got copies,
All the ones we're
prepared
repealing,
for
so
the-
then
for
can
the-
we pass these around maybe?
sure.
Do you want one?
No, I have one.
Do you want one?
I knew you had
I didn't have one.
Yeah.
When she was I
Because
didn't
you
know.
said
we
it for
were-
the meeting.
I had them last time for the meeting, then we waited for a couple of hours and we didn't have a meeting. Right. Right, okay. So anyway, added a couple of new definitions. A pop-up vendor means any person who engages in a temporary or transit business in the city selling goods, wares, merchandise, flowers, horticultural products, service, foods, or beverages, and who for the purpose of carrying on such business hires, lease, or occupies any lot, any portion thereof for the exhibition of sales of goods, wares, or merchandise. And that again is going to Alderwoman Flowers and others who were concerned about that they, some people will go on to private lots to do the vendings, okay? And they kind of just pop up for the day. They don't really have any kind of business permit or anything like that. They have a vending permit and they just pop up. Even in the districts which are prohibited, they will pop up. If you have a vacant lot in areas, they will just be there. One of the things that I really wanted to get to was the roadway means the portion of street or alley, including the medians. When we did this original bill back many years ago, we took out the median because the firefighter said, well, we need this because we have some times when we actually want to solicit money and we need that. But what I found out, the firefighters, well, when they do solicitation, they don't come under the vending. We have a separate solicitation bill that actually is through we have a commission set up that allows people to solicit and it governs them how they solicit. So the firefighters didn't need to be exempted from this because they were never a vendor anyway, because they were soliciting for charitable contributions. And I actually have that bill someplace. It's a different one. And I brought a copy someplace, and I'll give it to you, of the solicitation bills, because what I found out with the solicitation bills is they still are not supposed to be in the streets. They're not supposed to be stopping people. All the things that you see people doing when they're doing that, they're not supposed to be doing it. And it's very clear when you look at the solicitation bill. Going to page 3, no person shall sample, sell, or offer for sale or permit the offering or selling of any goods, wares, merchandise, flowers, horticultural products, service, foods, or beverages upon any LRA-owned property within the city of St. Louis. So while we're prohibiting vending, we're also prohibiting specifically LRA properties, because they kind of had fallen between, I guess, kind of a loophole, and the police were not enforcing if they were up on the properties, okay? No person shall sell or offer for sale or permit the offering of sales of any goods, wares, merchandise, flowers, horticultural products, service, foods, or beverages upon any privately owned lot within the city of St. Louis in those areas prohibiting vending except for festival vendors. So again, this goes back, if you're prohibiting vending, then we don't want the people up on the lots using an exception where they go up on the lot and say, I'm not in the street, because we just had prohibited vending on the streets. And so if there's no vending, there's no vending, period. And the exceptions, of course, when you're having festivals, there are on lots. So this would only allow them to do it when they had a festival vending license and not in place. And it's just prohibited in the places where there are no vendings. If you allow vendings and if you want them on the lots, that's fine. When you go to page 4, there are several reserved. And that is reserved because there were people, and that was in the previous codes and the previous ordinances, because I guess people were gonna come back and do vending districts, and it's easier to bring things into a vending district, bring a vending district in if you've already have it reserved a spot for it, than if you have to then try to put it in there. So I left it in there as a way for people who wanted to be able to do vending districts. They could just put them in there and give it a paragraph. There was nothing I changed on page 5, 6. Next change was on page 7. Every license shall state the vending district in which the license shall be valid for the licensee to legally operate their vending business, and every license shall instruct the licensee that the license is not legal in any other vending district or non-vending district. We have had a problem continuously with people who vend. They get a license, they don't know where it's for, they think it's for everything. They come to a place where there's no vending and they will argue, well, I got this vending license. Then they will tell you that they did not know that they could not vend in this place, okay? So this will tell them specifically where they are supposed to vend, and also will help the police in their enforcement, because if it says you only got a vending for the Merrimack vending district, then you can't be downtown without a specific vending license for that. You can't be in a place that says there's no vending at all, because it specifically will be there on your license that you have to wear around your neck. Okay, going through to the rest of it. I'm not going through anything that there was no changes. Go to page 14 of 18 is the next change. One of the things is that it talks about the provision of this ordinance shall not apply to any person who hires, leases, or occupies any part of a building or enclosed structure or portion thereof for the exhibition of sales of goods, wares, or merchandise for a period of more than 2 consecutive days and less than 10 consecutive days, or less than 3 occasions in any calendar year. You could put your stuff out, but what we found is happening is people are renting buildings. They're not doing anything inside. They're just doing everything outside all the time. So now it requires that if they're gonna be doing that as an exception, page 14 of 18 at the top. Page, line 406. You there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so basically it says, it gives an exception for people who just put their goods or wares out if not more than 2 consecutive days and less than 10 days on any 3 occasions in a calendar year. But what people were doing was just going and leasing a building. They weren't built, it was supposed to be an exception for businesses. So if you want to be able to put your stuff out a few days, you could. But, so we have people who don't have any business at all. They're just having a building, they've leased the building, and then they put it out and they move around. So we wanted to close that up and making sure that they are official business that are putting, because that exemption was not for somebody to be like a pop-up vendor who just leased a building and doesn't have any kind of business inside at all.
So then the idea is if they do sell inside, they can continue to sell outside all year round?
No, the period was just for 2 consecutive days and less than 10 consecutive days. That was always the exception. It just made sure that you know that they were supposed to be inside in the first place, okay? So if you had a business and then, for less than, for 2 consecutive days and less than 10, so for 2 to 9 days you wanted to put some stuff out, you could. But if you just rented a building and you did not have any kind of business there, you just paid the landlord some rent for a vacant building, you could not then just go out there and put stuff out. Do you understand now what I'm saying? And that's what was happening. They find every loophole, so that's what they're doing, and then they just move from vacant building to vacant building doing vending. Okay, so it's kind of goes around for what the whole purpose of no vending is. The provisions of this section shall supersede any other provisions of this or other ordinances if such provisions are inconsistent, and that's because that used to say this or other code, so we changed it to ordinance. Okay, let's go back to, let's see, what is this? Page 18, and it says of 8, it should be 18 of 20. Not numbered right. Down at the end here, section 35, except to expressly prohibit the distribution or sale of newspapers, pamphlets, One of the things that 35 did is said that it was not going to prohibit the distribution or sale of newspaper pamphlets or bills or written or printed matters. But I wanted to expressly exempt out the Kings Highway Memorial Boulevard. And that's the median that runs from the southern end of Dr. Martin Luther King to the northern end at West Florissant. There's another end that's supposed to, and that was to take out specifically because we have no grass, there's rock down there. They have trampled that whole median at Kings Highway and Natural Bridge is a mess now because we have the newspaper, we have the Post-Dispatch guy there, we have the Muslims guys there, we have people selling bean pies, we have people just soliciting. There's a group of people that you cannot get through Natural Bridge and Kings Highway. It is the busiest, second busiest supposed to be intersection in the state, and it is often the sign, a place of confusion and arguments because they stop the traffic and they won't move, and the people are in the middle of the median and the streets, and it's a hazard. And B, the addition is the Director of Streets is hereby directed to post no vending, no soliciting signs in both of the medians of Kings Highway Memorial Boulevard intersecting Natural Bridge. So, and that is just, I want it to be posted so that when the police are called, they will not be confused, that there will be a sign there saying that no one is supposed to be in there, in that median. Going down to section, page 19 of 20, line 580, section 37, we already said that any goods, wares, merchandise, flowers, horticultural products, foods, or beverages sold or offered for sale or money made through the sale of said above products by a vendor who is charged with a violation of this ordinance shall be confiscated. Before, we were just confiscating the wares and the merchandise. It makes it pretty easy for the people. They don't care, or they've sold everything. So my proposal is to also confiscate the money and have them put that in with the other things, so that until this is resolved, it will not give them a financial incentive to be doing this illegally if their money is also confiscated, and then they have to go to court. Okay? So then B just says any money made through the sale will be held pursuant to this section only to be released upon notification by the warrant officer that we've resolved this. Okay, there's no longer necessary for prosecution. We will not keep their money, their wares, merchandise, anything, if this is no longer for prosecution and it's been resolved. And D goes to if the money is not redeemed by the vendor within a reasonable time. And I called the police custody people to see what they did with it. And so this Benevolent Society is really something I just put there because he never got back with me. I've been trying to reach him for a week and a half now to see what happens. I called the police chief's office, and then they told me to call him, and he should be able to give me information. And he was not able to give me information. So I just put that there. So I'm still trying to get information about exactly where that money would go, because I want it to be donated to some good if they don't redeem it. You know, I wanted to the police have some kind of fund that they can get bicycles or something like that. So I was trying to find out exactly what they did, but I wasn't able to get that information. And that is the end of the proposed changes I was purposefully trying to do. I don't, okay, so I did not, the concerns that the Alderman from the 7th were something that I thought we had resolved, and that's why I did make all the copies of the ordinances, but we haven't, it seems. And so I don't want this heard because I was never trying to, and I will go back and see what it is the problem and correct it, because I want it to be right, because I want it to be a comprehensive bill that we can go to, and that it's just about vending, not about trying to change anybody's thing. And I would appreciate if anybody has any other things that are changed, if they would tell me that, because I'm not trying to change it. And I think I said that from the first beginning, that I was not trying to change anybody's ordinances. And so normally, if people know about things that are not right, you let people know. And then if they're trying to trick you, will find out. And if they're not, they will change them. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, there was one other change, proposed change, and that's on page 20 of 20, line 601. Right now, our fine is $50. Doesn't seem,
Page what?
page 20 of 20, the last page. It says 20 of 18 now, maybe.
Yeah, it does.
So, yeah, we need to correct the page numbering. But on, the last page, line 601, the fine right now is $50. I'm proposing to change it to $100.
Minimum, maximum 500.
Correct.
Questions?
What if they don't have $100?
Stop illegal vending.
Yeah, then stop breaking the law.
No, but what happened, we have to have something in there. Do they go to jail for 30 days? They go to the workhouse, or what happens?
That's up to the judge.
That's exactly right.
Well,
So,
no, but the judge can't make it up.
we don't have debtor's prison, so we do not have debtor's prison.
Well, it has to be some guideline if they're violating the law, because when you're speeding, there's some state laws that tell you what the judge can find you. He just might look at you and say, oh, hell, that's that sucker that did A, B, and C last shit. I'm gonna put him in the workhouse.
Well, the fine was already, only thing I changed is from $50 to $100. The fine was already $50. And that is, so the only
So
word,
we're raising it to 100.
the minimum, right, is a $100 fine. Or, the judge can suspend the imposition of sentencing. There are other things that the judges can do. But I just want them to know that we
But
are
it says
serious.
not less than $100.
It used to be not less than 50. So the proposed, it's not changed now. People may say that they don't want it. You may say that you don't like that idea. These are proposals.
So that judge can go anywhere between $100 and $500.
Correct. And I'm hoping that each time they come and do it illegally, that they go up a little bit more. Because obviously, let me just say this, there are people out there making a lot of money. I see some of the people get into cars and everything else. They have kids out there. At Natural Bridge and Union, they have young kids out there that should not be there. They've had kids a leg get broken. They've had an adult with the leg get broken. There are people that are making very good money. They would not be out there if they weren't making the kind of money that they were making. We don't know what they're making.
But there's nothing here that says if the person doesn't have the $100 or the $500, do they mandatory now have to serve some time in jail, or what happens?
No,
Doesn't look like it's mandatory, but it looks like in the existing code, there
It
is
says right here,
prison.
that's what the fine is.
Alderman, would you be
or in terms
willing,
of imprisonment.
would you want me to put something in there that said, or community sentencing?
I think that legal.
It is, but I'm trying,
Well, the judge can always do that. too.
exactly, but if he wants it, I'm asking him, do you want it to be put in here? We can say, or community sentencing, but the judge has those options already.
Yeah, we don't have to say that. They do it now.
I think we better leave that part like it is, because if we come up with something, then they're gonna blame us for it.
Okay, well,
Leave it like it
do you think $100 is too much?
Well, I'm not gonna do it.
Okay,
But those people out there selling, those people don't have no money, that's why they out there.
I would differ and say there are some people out there with some money.
Well, I'm just to be quiet until somebody comes and complains, and then I'll hear firsthand from somebody. Are there any other questions on Board Bill 137 committee substitute?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question. Line 580, page 19, Alderwoman. You added a section here about confiscating money, either the police or the health department. Have you consulted, I know you mentioned you tried to get in touch with the chief, but have you consulted the health department or anybody?
Wait, which one, page
Page
19?
19, line
Page
580.
Starts at 580.
That, or money made through the sale of said above products shall be confiscated.
First of all, the rest of it is already in force.
Right, which I
Okay.
get.
Right.
Because it's one thing to, if the police are there and you're illegally vending and you're not supposed to be selling flowers, right? It's easy to take the flowers and say you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start to get into currency, if I then say, okay, well, you've got $400 in your pocket, we're gonna confiscate that pending our investigation. I could see where that would cause all sorts of issues. I mean, because the currency, you mean, you don't know what is the result of the illegal vending versus money they already had. I mean, that's why asset forfeiture is such a tricky area.
And so what happens if you're selling drugs on the corner, Alderman, and they pick you up?
And if it's less than $5,000, they generally don't even seize the money. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
that-
they do.
Well, I have a problem with, with that part of the ordinance at this point, that we're gonna be basically requiring the police and the health department to seize currency.
No, I wasn't requiring the health department. I
It says right there, shall be confiscated by the police department or
Or,
health department.
or, there's a
Police
big.
or health.
Right, it's not requiring the health department. It's either one or either or.
Okay, but it's one or the other.
But you said it's requiring the police and the health
I
department,
said the
it's not.
police, I believe I said the police or the health
No,
department.
you didn't.
Either way, Alderwoman, you're requiring some agency of government, some entity of government to confiscate money from people.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, the money that they made off of vending, because they are supposed to with these vending, you know, they have these things a lot of times where they put the money in, and they don't always have that. Yes, I want them to hold that, because I want it to be something where they stop vending. I really don't want their money, and I also provide for them to be able to get back. I told you right off, I did not get the guy. I called him for a week, I called the police chief,
Yeah.
and they told me to call him because he could best say, because they do confiscate money, and he could best tell me what was done with it. But I was not able to get him, so I just put to the Police Benevolent Society, which I don't believe, there may not even be that.
Right.
I was just trying to say a place. I don't have a problem with them taking the money. You could, I understand.
Yeah, well,
Um,
Mr. Chairman, I would like to hear from the police department on this, if they're interested in confiscating money from illegal vendors, sort of their processes for doing that at a later hearing date.
Yeah, well, we need to know what they're gonna do with the money. They just
Exactly.
can't confiscate no
Right.
money.
Sure they can. They
No,
can they can confiscate money when you're creating an illegal act and you're doing something legal, and they do it all the time.
Yeah, but precisely what is it they do with it? All the
That-
money doesn't go to the same place.
And that is why I called the property person. That was my whole point. First, I called the police chief to try to track down. They said the best person to call, and I got the sergeant's name. Been calling him for over a week. He has not returned my call, which I'm kind of irritated about, because if I call the police chief, I get a faster call than the person who works in property.
Well, let's subpoena him in.
I don't really want to subpoena him, okay?
Well, why not?
I just really
You
wanted the
called him and
answer.
he ignored you.
Okay,
After all, you
well,
and all the ladies.
I appreciate that. I just really wanted to get the procedure. I didn't want to just make it willy-nilly. I want a procedure.
I just wanna make a suggestion, so
That's the.
I have the floor. I don't care if they confiscate the money. I mean, in all the years that we've been doing this, you know, with and without you, I mean, sometimes I'm happy if they just issue the summons, which very seldom ever happens. What they do is just tell them, shoot, you know, pick it up and go, you're not legal.
And they come right back the next week, and the next
No,
week,
I'm not,
and the
I'm
next
not
week.
arguing, but I'm just saying, if they issued the summons, they might not come back when they're illegal.
You want to do it?
Sure, yeah, I don't know, are we going around in any particular order?
Whoever raised their hand, let's
I'll
go.
raise my
Raise
hand.
both of them.
He's the chair, we do it the way he said.
All right, so I mean, I appreciate the, intent of the bill to clean up some of the old language, and it's my understanding that the primary intent would be to prohibit vending in these medians, and then to establish, you know, that where the vending is legal and not legal, so that, you know, to avoid the issue people are talking about. I have, I echo the concerns about confiscating money. I think that is problematic. I don't particularly think we should be trying to determine whether or not that money was
Understood.
used in that illegal vending. And then I have a couple of other questions. Okay, so.
Okay, well, no,
So,
okay, but
I-
finish your thought, because that's why I put them in here as proposals,
Right,
okay,
and
so.
I don't
right.
agree that the health department, under any circumstance, should be seizing money.
And they're not, that's incorrect, that's not what it
Okay.
says.
If
So
I could,
I
if
read
I
it
could
that they
interject just for a
can.
second, I would point out that Alderman Ortman, the chair has asked you to chair currently, so
Okay,
you currently are the chair, but go ahead.
okay, so.
If you'd agree,
And so,
I'll take that as agreement. Go ahead. Sorry.
So then, I wanna turn to, I guess, for the ordinance,
Okay.
page 3,
All right.
199.
Three.
this change which reads, no person shall sell or offer for sale or permit the offering or selling of any goods, wares, merchandise, flowers, horticultural products, services, food or beverages upon any privately owned lot within the city of St. Louis. And I have an explicit problem with that, specifically relating to horticultural products and flowers, because there are, with the urban farming movement here in St. Louis, I just attended the Gateway Greening Summit 2 weeks ago, where a lot of residents are wanting the ability to, on a very, very small basis, be able to vend fruits and vegetables from their own house under very limited and restricted conditions, and many other cities are adopting ordinances that allow for residents to be able to vend in that in very, very, very specific ways. So I would like to see this removed, because I don't think that this is a traditional type of vending that needs to be addressed in this vending bill. That's what I would like to
Well,
see.
So I would like to differ and say that it is exactly one of the big problems that we have, because people go on, because they're trying to go around the vending thing, so they go on these privately owned lots, most times without permission. They have a vending thing, and that's why, wait a minute, so that's why I specifically said only in those areas that prohibit vending. If you don't prohibit vending, you can go on any other lot. So if your ward, if you don't have prohibit vending, they can be on every lot that you want them to be on, okay? Except for LRA, okay?
So then maybe I'm misunderstanding how vending works in general sense in the city. So there are vending districts set up that have special rules applied, and these special vending districts include downtown, City Park, and then where are the explicitly prohibited vending districts?
Every place that you don't exempt out. And that's why I told you.
So then that would be every residential neighborhood that I've got.
And for the third or fourth time, and then I sent you an email saying, it is right now, okay? Right now, it's prohibited.
Right, but what
Okay,
I
and
want
so,
to do,
okay, but that's why I sent you a thing saying, while we're doing this, why don't you craft out where you want it to be and put it in here, okay?
Well, my position on just this particular issue is that, I guess I've been talking to Scott Ogilvy and some other folks who have been sort of pushing this urban agriculture friendly legislation, which I think is a good thing.
For where people want it.
For where people want it, precisely.
Mhm.
But the next thing that the urban farming movement wants to see the city of St. Louis allow is very small vending from people's homes. And I don't wanna have to establish like a vending district for just the 20th ward so people can do that. I think we're talking about doing some citywide, allowances for people to do that without having to establish a vending-friendly zone.
But the whole
So-
point of having places where you don't want vending is because the people don't want, just what you're talking about. They do not want people to pop up next to them and to
Right.
do vending.
So, but I think.
Could I try to make it, maybe it could be clarified, you're the attorney. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but, if it could be said in a way that the, owner occupant of that house could have their little mini stand out on their property.
Well, and I was.
And that's kind of where I think you're going with it.
Well, and with all due respect, my,
And the intent here is the, guy that's going down to the market, and filling up his truck, the back of his truck, and then coming out and putting a stand up somewhere and putting the stuff either on private property or wherever they can.
so my suggestion and clarification would be to remove that and instead add something where we're talking about how you're not allowed to vend on LRA. We could say, on private property without, permission. But I don't want to explicitly just ban the ability for us to move forward, in allowing people to be able to vend from their own homes or from a home they rent, on a very, very, very small, limited scale.
Okay, so let me tell you what I experienced in the 20 years. When people start something very small, they expand it exponentially into out of control, okay? What you're talking about is it sounds really nice, except for that, then you start to look at, are you having a home business where you need a home occupancy to do business on? Because if you're gonna set up vendings outside,
Very
so-
much agreed.
Right,
So then
okay,
the idea-
so you would have to go then and get something to allow you to do that. And I can, so that's something different to me, okay?
It is
He's-
very different, I
Right,
totally agree. So then, just for your knowledge, the proposal that we have been talking about, and it would mirror similar ordinances in other cities that have come, that have been implemented very recently, it would be very, very restrictive. So, you know, no more than once a month, and, you know, for very, very restricted hours, and it wouldn't be able to spiral out of control. So,
And so, I'm gonna reply to that. So, where I represent would be opposed to that. They don't, that's, you know, we have a limit on rummage sales. You can only do that a few times a year in specific places, because people don't want that. They don't want that. It's mostly residential. They don't wanna see that. They don't want people doing that. They want businesses in their business place. And so, they particularly want to be, protected from that. Just what you're thinking is a great idea. They don't think it's a great idea.
Well-
In fact, I got the most, when this whole thing about the chickens, I got so many calls, it is not funny, because they were like scared that all these people were gonna have chickens next to them, okay? So they don't, and if you live, I don't know, your ward may be more younger. I have an older population. They're very, you know, they've been in their houses for a long time. They own them. They don't wanna see people, they don't want any chickens next door, to tell you the truth of the matter. They don't want vending. They don't want businesses. They don't want, mostly they oppose home occupancy businesses. They were glad that Scott took the daycare out, because daycare, which we left in before, ended up being a big headache with people coming in, blowing and things like that. When you're running home occupancies were supposed to be only for those where you were not gonna bring people into a neighborhood, and you were not going to. So
Yeah.
what you're proposing will go against what we just said about home occupancies.
I absolutely disagree with that. There would be very restrictive conditions under which you could vend in a very specific manner.
But you would
And
bring
so-
people from, what the whole point of home occupancies is that you can use it and you're not bringing traffic and people into it. It is your business. Like, you know, if I'm a lawyer, and as long as I don't bring people in there, I can send things out and write things and get my bills.
Yep.
But if I'm a doctor or a lawyer and I'm bringing the people in there, or if I'm vending and I'm bringing people, that becomes a business that people don't want.
Well, and possibly another idea, if we created a home occupancy license for what you're trying to do on a smaller scale with the conditions or restrictions,
Mhm.
you know, that might be a better way to approach it, you know, than trying to stick it in vending.
Well, that's my point, is I want to be able to maybe explore that without explicitly.
And what you do, and you say, so notwithstanding any other ordinances, that this would be allowed under certain conditions, okay? But I hear what you're saying, but I've particularly got a request for that, because the things that what your guys are talking about, what you think are progressive, my community thinks is gonna blow their community up. And so a lot of times what
Yeah.
happens in North St. Louis, South St. Louis doesn't know that it's gonna happen to them until it happens to them. And then they're like, oh my God, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying. I'm putting a star by that to look at, and I'd like to have further conversations with you about that. How about-
Okay, because I wanna be able to safeguard the ability to do that in the future.
Okay.
Then my other question another question I have pertains to, the ability for the Parks Director to set up districts within parks. So that would be, I don't know where we are in the ordinance, but I'm looking at page 14 of the code. And so where we have this change here such that the director should not issue more, that the director shall issue not more than 10 vehicle vendor permits and not more than 3 fixed location sidewalk vendor permits at a time for the totality of parks located within the downtown vending district. So that's a change.
No, I told you that was a mistake and that I was gonna do
that was
a
one of the-
amendment.
Okay,
Okay, so
Okay.
that's not changing. It already reads that the director shall issue no more than 10 vehicle vendor permits, or fixed location sidewalk vendor permits at one time for the totality of all city parks located within the downtown vending district.
okay.
That is the way it is now. It did not, I was not trying to change it, and that's the first thing I said.
And I'm sorry I missed that. So the ability for the Parks Director to set up vending districts within parks,
Mm-hmm.
one of the events I'm concerned about, and it hasn't been really mentioned much, is Food Truck Fridays at Tower Grove South, Tower Grove Park, and I'm not sure if they get a festival permit for that, or under what they're able to operate, but it's something that's certainly important to the south side.
Didn't touch it at all. It is exactly what it is right now.
Okay.
They, in fact, they can issue different kinds of permits, so that was not touched, okay?
Okay, And then another question I have, and this is a question I'll echo from the previous meeting, was whether or not we've spoken to any of our good vendors in the city of St. Louis, folks that do vend, that are good for the city, that are appreciated by neighbors, and getting their input on changing any of the vending code. Making
The
sure
good
that-
vendors are still allowed, people can still allow them where they want them to be. It didn't say it couldn't be in the 20th ward. You could put them in the 20th ward and every corner. But what you call a good vendor, and what they think is a good vendor may not be a good vendor and a good match for my neighborhood. Same thing was why downtown has such restrictive things. When we first did these vending bills, downtown didn't have such restriction. They had fights, they had all kind of things with people. There was 50 people on a corner. There was all kind of things, so it got more restrictive as we tried to work with them. They may have been good vendors, but everybody thinks about themselves, and nobody thinks about how to do it in an orderly. So everybody thinks that they're a good vendor, okay? But, so we had to get more restrictive, and people felt like that they were being left out because we had to limit the amount of things because, of course, everybody wants to be downtown, and everybody cannot be downtown at one time.
Well, and just FYI, that was the downtown district around the Cardinals. I mean, it happened with the new stadium.
But no, we changed them. Remember, first, I don't know if you were, at first we had more diverse vending downtown, but there was a particular.
It got more restrictive
Right.
at that point in time.
Right, there was a
That's-
particular fight that happened right outside the civil courts. It was a big thing with the hot dog guy in some place, so it just, we have to have, I'm not saying vending is bad, I'm saying vending is bad as my spot. And every alderman has had a chance, and before this, to exempt out where they thought it was good in their ward. Most of them don't want to because it's not good fit. You know, there are some places that it's a good fit, and 20th Ward may be one of them, but it was not, and it is not in many of them. And so they could have exempted it out and said, this part of Hampton is great and you can do it. They didn't want to do that.
So, I guess just to summarize, I'm not comfortable with giving the authority to the health department to seize money.
Again, I will say again,
It does say
That-
confiscated by the police department or the health department.
that is speaking to all the other wearers, okay? And I will make that more specific to the police. And I will agree with the Alderman from the 7th. I don't have a problem in bringing the police in and saying what they do. That's why I called them. He just couldn't get him back. The police chief told me he would call me back. And that was not meant, or does not mean you are mandated to do that.
And I do not agree with this provision of that we talked about, no person shall sell or offer sale of goods on their own private property. I'd like,
No, that's not what I was saying. So, again, I think the Alderman from the 9th has said it. It wasn't that no person should sell goods for private property, because that's already prevented anyway if there's a no vending thing. It was the people who come and set up on these lots, and they give the people money, or they don't, and they may not even get a license or anything. They just set up I'll give you an example for Valentine's Day. Every privately owned lot you could look at was all over. I got calls all day. Alderwoman from the 2nd was talking about it. You get calls, they're everywhere. They're setting up. When you call the police about them, but if they do anything, as the Alderman from the 9th say, then the police don't know. So this was specifically asked for at the last meeting, if we could put something in it, not the last one, but 2 meetings ago, I guess it was, when Alderwoman from the 2nd was here, about the lots and how we could address that issue.
if this were adjusted to say, to specify without permission.
Even if they get permission, so here's.
Can I touch on that?
Yes.
The problem is, and the problem's been on, when you say private property, and I'll use the Shell station at Limpin Arsenal. The guy pulls up and he's got a whole, Easter time, he's got a whole truckload of Easter bunnies. And he's selling them for $5 a piece, and he's got permission, and the way that we've addressed it, he doesn't have occupancy. And he'll come in and they'll be busy on the inside and say, yeah, go ahead, we don't care. And that's not what they actually mean. It might not even be the owner, it might be one of the employees. But certain people don't like that, they call the police, and that's how it's addressed, that you need occupancy to set up. On the pop-up guys that on the special occasions, I guess is
Right.
what I'm saying, but,
Right.
you know, some of them, depending on where they are, and they've done this down on South Broadway too, you know, they'll take and pull the truck up and put their 10 by 10 pop-up, you know, just for shade, you know, cause they don't wanna be in the sun, but they can't do that either. I mean, that's according to the vending, you know, they can't do it, they have to sell out of their truck,
I gotcha.
so.
So then, do we feel, without having been able to read all of these ordinances that we're repealing, I think that,
Well, a lot of the
One of the
old
most-
ones were already repealed, okay? So the ones that are the new ones that I talked to, and I want to look at since the Alderman from the 7th brought up concerns, are the ones that are highlighted. The ones that are not highlighted were already repealed in previous things, okay? So the ones that's up to July the 29th, 1999 had already been repealed. I repeated it to make sure that we didn't somehow, while we were doing something else, reenact them. So I made sure I repeated them. So the ones we're talking about are the new ones, okay?
so then, I think one of the most important things is just to make sure that there are no unintended consequences.
I agree.
Such as the one that Alderman Coder brought up, wherein one of these ordinances established a fund, that would be repealed.
I noted
So-
it, and I'm gonna go back over it again, and I thought that the clerk and I were going back and forth with that, as I said. When you going back to 1929, and I told you, and I sent you, every time you sent me something, I sent you back, said,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
not trying to do forced
Right.
anything, and I'm not trying to change. The things that I'm trying to change are highlighted so that you will know, okay? If there's an unintended consequence, I have never said, oh, let's just do this anyway. That's not how I do it. So, and even the ones that, my suggestions, I want the committee's input, something that we can have that works for various wards, okay?
That's all the questions I have.
Okay, there was one other thing was coming up that I wanted to tell you guys, I lost it here. Somebody brought up about the cell phones, and I wanna say that I think that the sampling part of this ordinance kinda covers that, okay, where we talk about no sampling, and I think that was done while I was gone, and that actually does cover the pop-up cell phone things, because it doesn't just cover selling stuff, it says sampling and giving away. And so I think that's already in the ordinance when I went to read it. So I think that we can use that for those who want to. And people, if you don't want it, you never have to call the police. You can just let them vend away, okay? But for the people who do, that will cover all these, because in North St. Louis, we have all these people who set up tents on private lots. Also, that's the other thing, it's not just vending, they will set up to give these telephone things away.
Oh, yeah.
And they have trash and everything, and most of the time, they do not have any kind of permission at all, or what the alderman from the 9th said, they went to somebody across the street who owns, and the guy may own the lot, but it's somebody in the store, and they just told him, oh, I don't care. Then when you call the police, then you gotta try, the reason is you have to try to then show that they are trespassing. So we're trying to look for something that they would have to prove that they are supposed to be there. And then, you're not supposed to be there if you have a no vending. What's the point of saying no vending in this area if you can still pop up and do whatever you want to do?
But if it's not in a vending district, you can't vend there anyway,
And
regardless of, because you're, right?
Every alderman, right now, you could take and say, make the whole 20th ward vending district,
Right,
okay?
but what I'm saying is, if we're requiring them to have on their vending, their little, they're
It's
getting a card.
It's their license that they
Right,
have to wear around
license.
their neck.
And it will say where they're allowed to vend. If
Right.
they're popping up at the gas station, even with permission, it's not in a vending district and they cannot do it anyway.
Well, so we had to,
Are we making the law, if they're not following one law, we're just making another one?
no, there's kind of a gray area about the lots, okay? Because we specifically talk about streets, and that's why I want to put medians back in there, because we kind of left some gray areas. And so when you leave gray areas, then that's why I'm trying to close that up, okay?
Okay. This is a tough, with all of the previous ordinances, it's a very tough to get, I still don't have a firm understanding of everything we're repealing. I really appreciate the red line in the code, because this has made it digestible. My concern would be for unintended consequences of repealing lots of ordinances, and then again, just
Well, what I'm going to do is,
disabling us
I
from
will
moving
go
forward
through the new ones now, okay? Because I thought we had them all under the red line. I will go through each and every new, not the ones that have been, already, repealed from I will not go through 1926 through, 1999.
Okay.
But I will go through from the first one, because I will go from 2000 through 2013, okay? All of those, and there are about 10, let me see how many are there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I will go through each 10 of them and try to go through where it is in here and see if there's something. So he specifically gave me ordinance 68603. Okay, so I will go through there and if it's, I will only take out the part, if there's something that's other than vending, and if it's an authorization for money, then we will just amend, we will, repeal just that part that puts it in here, any part that authorizes money or something like that, so it will not be the whole, ordinance that would be, repealed, it would just be a part of it to put it in here, the rest of it remain. And then I will bring that back outlined, and the clerk and I will continue to work on this. Cause I still continue to want to get this done, okay? And I still think that if we are having this much trouble, think about when we call the police about this, when they're trying to figure out who's on first.
When you
Yeah, no,
get
I
to,
think-
when you
and I-
get to the floor.
And I think
Exactly.
outlining it on the license will be a helpful step,
I agree.
so.
Well, if there are no other questions, you don't wanna vote on this?
I don't wanna
one,
vote, I wanna go back, I'll keep working on it. I do still wanna have, one vending bill, cause I think it's ridiculous that we have so many different ones. Because some of them are amending stuff that doesn't even exist. I brought some of the old ones like Carol, cause before we used to have, ward vending, so, and people would take their whole wards out, so Carol Howard has an amendment that says Ward 14, that's not even valid anymore because we don't have it like that anyway. Then Scott came just last year and did something for Ward 24, but that's not even how it's set up anymore. So we're trying to clean all of that up, so we will continue.
There were no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion to dismiss the meeting till next time.
Move to
So-
adjourn.
Second, Georgia?